Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I want to briefly discuss today some of the views put forward by Dr. Hany Atchan on his YouTube channel and briefly talk about the methodology that he often refers to as the only methodology through which the Quran can be interpreted. And especially we're going to look at his interpretation of the verses concerning the concept of Hoor in the Quran. So let's begin. Bi'awnihi ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Dr. Hany Atchan's YouTube channel. It's called Marvelous Quran. And this is a video that particularly interested me because of various reasons, which I'm going to discuss, inshallah, in the course of this video. But before we begin, just a couple of things very quickly. First of all, I am not interested in rebuttaling him because he does not come across as an academic. I mean, sure, he has a degree, I think, in strategic studies or something, but he does not have an academic degree in Islamic studies. And so I have no interest in trying to rebuttal him, and I haven't done much of my homework, so to speak, by looking into all the videos that he has on his channel. Just one or two, I skimmed through these. But I'm going to show you one very important thing today. When people without any academic background in Islam, they profess an opinion saying that it is be-all, end-all of opinions, that my opinion is what counts, and all those who came before me misinterpreted something. My interpretation is the one that stands. My opinion is the one that should be adhered to. When we allow people doing that, this is what happens. And we have seen this phenomenon in recent years. The point is, I'm not being an elitist. I'm not saying, that one elite opinion is be-all, end-all, and there cannot be a diversification of interpretations on a given topic. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, you at least need some sort of academic background in order to speak from an authoritative point of view in a given subject. As a layman, well, you can say, other peoples have understood this as this, and I am understanding this as this. This is my humble opinion, and that's all well and good. I mean, sure, why not? Everyone is entitled to his or her own opinion. But if you're going to comment on something and say, well, everyone who came before me misunderstood this, we're going to ask you as academics, and I take myself as an academic, a humble academic, a student. We're going to ask you, well, because this is what's called the peer review. This is the concept of peer review. This is a fundamental concept in research. If you haven't done an advanced degree from a university, you might have a difficult time wrapping your head around this concept, but this is a concept, a fundamental concept in academia. It's called peer review. Unless and until something is peer reviewed, you cannot just come out and say, well, this is an authentic viewpoint or an authentic piece of research. You can't just say that. So we're going to turn around and ask you, okay, what degree do you have? Where are you coming from? Do you have peer-reviewed publications in international journals? Have others reviewed your research, your methodology? What kind of a methodology are you implying? You have come up with this methodology yourself, or does this exist in the given subject, in the given discipline? So these are the questions that we are going to ask you. If you're coming out and saying, well, Others have understood this ayah of the Quran, or for example, this interpretation of the Quran this way, but I am putting forth another interpretation, and that's my humble opinion. Well, then that's all fine and good. I mean, sure, why not? By all means. YouTube is a platform where anyone can come and say anything, pretty much whatever they please. But making it be all end all, making it authoritative, making it authentic, that requires more than just your word. So, anyways, let's look at this. This is a relatively shorter video on his channel in which he talks about the concept of Hoor in Quran. Let's see how he begins, and I'm going to scroll down and most of the time, so you're just going to be listening to what he's speaking, obviously for copyright reasons and whatnot. Let's begin. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Today,
assalam wa
inshallah, we're going to
rahmatullah.
discuss a very important question that is often misrepresented and misunderstood. And that question is about what's referred to as the 72 versions in paradise. It's a topic that is salacious, that is contemptuous, and that creates all sorts of problems. And we're going to discuss it according to the methodology by understanding it.
Note how he's saying that this is a topic that is contemptuous. Okay, and in what's coming up, he's going to make a claim and say that all the exegetes who interpreted it in this way, this verse of the Quran, Hurum maqsuratun fil khiyam, they were all misogynistic, they were all biased, they were all prejudiced. And this is a huge claim to make, even for an academic to outrightly say, well, anyone who hasn't understood something the way he or she is understanding it, they're all biased, they're all, they're all defected in their thinking, so to speak. So anyways, let's continue with this.
Contemptuous, and that creates all sorts of problems, and we're going to discuss it. 2 of 4 locations in the Quran. We shall see the insightful, and its verses are full, and it's of the Quran. It doesn't mean it is for those. It doesn't mean it's for simple-minded people. It doesn't have some time and have the patience to try to understand the depth of the meanings of the Quran.
Okay, so now he's saying, what I'm going to tell you is for people who have patience to try to understand the depth of the meanings of the Quran. As if nobody else other than Dr. Hany Atchan has ever had that patience to understand the depth of the meanings of the Quran. Na'udhu billah. I mean, just saying that is a very narcissistic statement. Saying that no one in the whole tradition, in the whole history, has ever understood the deeper meanings of certain verses the way I'm understanding it and the way I'm going to tell you about this. So, that's how he begins.
As we shall see, the Quran is easy to understand, it's clear. It doesn't mean it's for simple-minded people. It doesn't mean it is for those who want to rush the interpretation of the Quran. It doesn't mean it is for those who want to stay at the superficial layers of the Quran. The Quran is very insightful, and its verses are packed with information. As a matter of fact, this is the exact concept that's referred to by the word Hoor, as we shall see. So we're going to start with chapter 55, which is Surah Ar-Rahman. So verse 55-72 discusses أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم حور مقصورات في الخيام. Unfortunately, it's been translated as, virgin women who have been locked up in tents, and this represents really the mind of those who are misogynistic and, to be honest with you, misinformed, or they have their own biases.
Right. So the verse of the Quran is Hurum maqsuratun fil khiyam. And you see for yourself and you hear for yourself, he's saying it has unfortunately been translated as virgins who reside in khiyam. Classically, this has been translated as Hurum maqsurat. Maqsurat does not mean literally that they are chained, that they are in a sort of a jail. Classically, it is understood that it is being said in the verse that there are virgins, beautiful girls, virgins, who are residing inside of mahallats, inside of big mansions. Khiyam, when understood in conjunction with the word maqsurat, the classical understanding is that they are in luxury. They are residing there in luxury, in big, luxurious mansions. So that is the classical understanding of the verse. Now, Dr. Hany Atchan is suggesting that every one of the scholars, everyone from the Islamic tradition, who has interpreted this verse in these terms, has been a misogynistic and has been biased, has had his or her own agenda behind interpreting these verses as such. And this is ridiculous, really, on many levels. Even as an academic, you can't just say that without any proof. Where is your proof, Dr. Atchan? How are you suggesting that those interpretations are wrong? Because these interpretations, these tarajim, translations, are based on Arabic language. You see, there are 4 ways that you can interpret a text. In classical understanding of the tafsir and fiqh and usul al-fiqh, you have 4 ways of interpreting a nas, a text. Ibaratun nas, dalalatun nas, isharatun nas, and iqtida'un nas. These are the 4 ways in which you can interpret a text. The first way that you translate a text or interpret it is ibaratun nas. Ibaratun nas simply means that you are looking at what the verse is saying outwardly, linguistically. So what does the word Hoor mean in Arabic? Sure, it means to unwrap something from around your head or around your body. But it also means a young virgin. As simple as that. What are you going to do about all the ma'ajim and all the dictionaries that have existed out there for centuries of Arabic language? Go to any dictionary, Lisanul Arab. Okay, go to Al-Munjad, which is not as well reputed as Lisanul Arab is, and most of the modern researchers actually go back to it because it is written by an Orientalist. So even go to that dictionary, even Google it. Google the word Hoor, and you'll find out that it simply means in Arabic a virgin young girl. What are you going to do with that? Maqsurat, they are in luxury, they are luxuriously living. Maqsurat, fil khiyam, inside big mansions. So this is a simple translation of the Arabic words. Okay, now I'll tell you something. I don't have anything against this guy. There is no personal agenda here. I mean, sure, he has come up with some of his own interpretations and his own methodology. Okay, fine. But if he says that this is my interpretation, I have understood these verses this way, isharatun nas. This is isharatun nas because Hoor is used metaphorically, maqsurat is used metaphorically, fil khiyam is used metaphorically, because when you're saying that these verses do not mean what they outwardly mean, you're going towards metaphors, right? So if you are metaphorically interpreting it and saying, okay, this is my interpretation, this is my humble interpretation, then that's fine. I mean, I got no problem with that. You can interpret it and bring your own arguments, why you are interpreting it this way. Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. And sure, we can look at it, we can have a discourse about it. But the way Dr. Atchan is framing his opinion is that this is be all end all. Everyone else has erred, and I am the only one who knows the correct interpretation. Okay, what is his interpretation? Let's look at that.
And they have their own intellectual limitations. I don't know.
Right, so what he's saying essentially is that everyone else, all the exegetes that have come before him, all had intellectual limitation. He is the only one, Dr. Hany Atchan is the only one who possesses the righteous mind, the righteous intellect, and he is the only one befitting the task of interpreting verses of the Quran. That is what he's implying, right?
Know how to describe them, as we shall see. The translation according to the methodology that we use in this
Methodology that we use. And that methodology has been formulated by him himself. Okay.
channel, and that is based on the Quranic methodology, what we call the organic methodology.
Not really. In some other video, I'll also discuss in detail what his methodology is. In fact, there are other videos on YouTube that discuss his methodology in detail and show how that is not the Quranic methodology.
Is as follows: scriptural Quranic verses. So Hoor is a description of the verses, of the Quranic verses.
So this goes back to my original point that I was making. If you're saying that Hoor means scriptural verses that need to be unraveled before they could be understood, maqsurat, fil khiyam, and fil khiyam means that they are protected by Allah. Well, then this is metaphorical interpretation. Hoor in Arabic means virgin, beautiful virgin. Hoor al-Ain, very beautiful virgin. But if you're saying that this does not mean a virgin, this actually means the verses, scriptural verses that need to be unraveled, then you are interpreting it in metaphorical terms. You're saying that Hoor is used as a metaphor for scriptural verses. And if you're doing a metaphorical exegesis of the Quran, how can you come out and say that the literal exegesis is wrong? What is your argument for that? I am interested in that argument. And then this is going to pose a lot of problems for you, and we're going to see just in a minute, because then you'll have to interpret all the verses that are related to this in metaphorical terms. All of the verses. And, well, this comes dangerously close to some of the beliefs of the Mu'tazilites, but I don't have time to go into that detail right now. But you see the point that I'm making, it's a simple point. First of all, nothing against any individual. Everyone, every human being has a right to have an opinion. But if you are trying to impose your opinion on everyone by saying that this is the only opinion, the only correct opinion, and everyone that has had other opinion have erred, then there is a problem. Then we're going to ask you what your argument for that is. You're doing metaphorical exegesis of the Quran. What is your argument? What is your framework? It is flawed. In many respects, it is flawed. But let's just see the case that he makes.
And just be patient and listen. These scriptural verses that need to be unraveled before they could be understood. And it is often used with the concept of unraveling something, or from the sun, and then you come to unravel. So in other words, the Quranic verses need to be unraveled. They are so it's absolutely not talking about virgin women.
How is it absolutely not talking about virgin women? Okay, you said it is used in Arabic for unraveling, in the meaning of unraveling. Fine, agreed. But it is also used in the very Arabic language that you're citing, as a virgin. So what is your argument for saying that it does not mean that here at all? Is there a contextual argument? Is there a linguistic argument? I mean, really, there is no argument for what you're saying.
Women or paradise or any of this stuff, as we shall see. Just be patient, as I said, and allow yourself the time to really appreciate the depth and the beauty of these meanings. So these scriptural Quranic verses need to be unraveled, unpacked before they could be understood. Now, fil khiyam, the word fil khiyam is often translated. The Prophet Shaheed, he witnesses, is protected by Allah, is himself as a true witness.
And he cites a hadith in which the Prophet of Allah said, "Ash-shahidu fi khaymatillah." And he says that fil khiyam does not mean that they are inside, inside a khayma, inside a protected place. But again, linguistically, khiyam means that. Even in the hadith referred to khaymatillah, you can interpret it literally. But because in that hadith, dalalatun nas is not on that particular word khayma as literally understood, that is why we translate that hadith in different meanings. But here, what is the dalalatun nas on anything else other than there are beautiful virgins who are residing in luxury inside the mansions? That is my question. Again, he does not answer this question. He does not put forward any kind of a dalil, a burhan, so to speak, an argument for interpreting these verses in the metaphorical sense that he is interpreting them in.
Witness to truth is shielded by the 10 that need to be unpacked. Scriptural verses have never been corrupted. 73, but 74 continues the description of the same concept. لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان. These scriptural verses have never been corrupted, neither by a human nor a jinn. Now, I'm not going to talk about jinn today. We will discuss this concept, which is also misunderstood, in another video, inshallah.
Two things here, very quickly. First of all, note how he's saying that we will discuss the concept of jinn at another time, and it has also been misunderstood. So I think he does not believe that jinns exist. From what he's saying, I'm assuming that. Second thing, lam yatmithhunna. And how are you interpreting the word yatmithhunna as that nobody has corrupted this? Yatmithhunna in Arabic language very clearly means to touch something. So lam yatmithhunna, how can you interpret that in the metaphorical terms that you are interpreting it in, and saying that these scriptural verses have been corrupted by neither a human nor a jinn? Lam yatmithhunna insun qablahum wala jan. What is your argument here? I don't see an argument. Anyways, let's continue quickly.
We will accept that these verses term, that means those who are...
Now here is another problem, and a very major one. Because he has interpreted those previous verses in metaphorical terms, these verses, إن المتقين في مقام أمين في جنات وعيون يلبسون من سندس واستبرق متقابلين كذلك وزوجناهم بحور عين. He has to interpret these words also according to his previous devious metaphorical interpretations. Because unless he does that, unless he interprets these verses in the same light, he cannot justify his interpretation and his meanings of the verses that he has professed, that he has put forward. And that's a major problem. That's a huge problem, as we're going to see. Let's look at it. Now what he's saying is that innal muttaqina fi maqamin amin. What does the word muttaqeen mean here? The muttaqeen are those who are disciplined in applying the Quranic methodology. They are in a secure place, fi jannatin wa uyun, in an understanding that flows from pure well springs. Yalbasuna min sundusim wa istabraqim mutaqabilin. These pure well springs are shielded. Now, notice how he's saying yalbasuna. This is referring to uyun. This is referring to the springs, the well springs. Shielded in weaved authoritative references, and they gush in sudden bursts like lightning flashes, and they are coherent with each other. So these uyun are the ones that are shielded in weaved authoritative sundus, was weaved authoritative references. Wa istabraq, and what he is taking from istabraq is that it means they gush in sudden bursts. And he says, well, this is the aha moment. When you are researching on something, when you're trying to unravel deeper meaning of something, it suddenly clicks like lightning. That's what it means. Mutaqabilin, and they are coherent with each other. They are mutaqabil, they are mutaqabilin. Then, كَذَلِكَ وَزَوَّجْنَاهُمْ بِحُورٍ عَيْنٍ. And he's interpreting this, that زَوَّجْنَاهُمْ, this hum dhamir, this is raja' ila al-uyun. And thus these well springs are paired to scriptural verses that when unraveled, they become as clear as the contrast between deep black and bright white. So you see how he is going to interpret a lot of verses just to keep in line with his original meaning. He will have to change the meanings of a lot of things here. He has to. Otherwise, his original interpretation of Hoor does not stand a chance. The interesting thing is, إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي مَقَامٍ أَمِينٍ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ. Now there is a very easy, straight away translation of this, that the pious are in maqamin amin, in Jannah, fi jannatin wa uyun. And yalbasuna min sundus, they're wearing sundus, wa istabraq mutaqabilin, sitting across each other. Kadhalika wa zawwajnahum, and we have married them bi hurin ain, with virgin girls. What is Dr. Atchan's argument for not being able to take any of these verses in their ibaratun nas meaning? This is my main question. According to him, these verses do not mean what they apparently mean. So what is his argument in saying that? If you're saying that the literal meanings cannot be taken here, you'll have to have a dalil for that. You'll have to have an argument for that. And there is no argument for it. There isn't one.
Disciplined in applying the ta or jannat represents the areas or the abodes or sort of the realms where you are sitting and understanding things and you're surrounded, you're immersed. And
so Jannat, according to him, means in these verses that you're surrounded by the understanding. Okay, I mean, that could be one of the interpretations, but how can this be the only interpretation? I mean, as a whole, you can watch this whole video, and I encourage you to watch it. I encourage you to go to his channel, watch these videos. Sure, I'm all for it. I'm all for new research. I'm all for new interpretations, but those interpretations should enrich the meanings, should be in conjunction with the tradition as a whole. Also, if you are coming up with another interpretation and saying that this is an interpretation, one of the interpretations, and I'm putting it forward humbly, then that's fine. I have no problems with that. Nobody should have a problem with that. But if you are coming up with an interpretation and then saying, okay, this is the only interpretation that could be done, then that is something at least us academics would have a problem with. Because even in academia, it is considered to be a very narcissistic approach, and there is no room for narcissism in academia. Academia is all about humility. Academia is all about understanding. Academia is all about peer reviewing. So unless you're peer reviewed and you have extremely sound arguments for what you're saying, I'm sorry, but this cannot be the only interpretation, and we just can't fathom the misogynistic exegetes and their agendas. We just can't wrap our heads around this concept, this extremely narcissistic concept that you have come up with. So again, I'm not trying to rebuttal him or anything. Like I said, I'm not well prepared to do that as of making this podcast. But maybe I'll come back to this. I'll revisit another of his videos, or maybe talk about one or two of his concepts, and I'll come well prepared to rebuttal him. But the point that I'm making, I hope I make this point clear, that saying that this is the only interpretation that there could be, and everyone else has misunderstood these concepts and these verses, it's hilarious, to say the least. It's not authentic, it's not academic, it's not pertinent, and so really, I don't even feel a need to rebuttal the guy. Like I said in the introduction to this video, to this podcast, because he's not an academic really in Islamic studies. I don't feel an overwhelming need to try to to go through all of his videos and invest my time into what he's saying. He's not an Islamic academic, so he does not have an academic background in Islamic studies and Islamic sciences. So on that basis, I'll advise you to take these interpretations as one of the interpretations. It may be, sure, it's an interesting interpretation. Sure, you can look at these verses this way. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you cannot look at these verses in this way. You can look at these verses in this way, unless you're not trying to do away with the concept of jinn, and you are trying to tell people that their iman has been flawed and over all these years, and the Jannah does not exist, and the jinn do not exist. If you're not trying to do that, sure, you can look at these things, at these verses in this meaning, Hoorum maqsuratun fil qiyam, that there are certain scriptural verses that are protected by Allah, and they have deeper meanings. Sure, why not? You can look at it this way. But this can surely not be the only interpretation, and it surely cannot be the case that everyone else who has looked at these verses and who has something to say about these verses in the Islamic tradition have all erred, have all been mistaken. They were all intellectually flawed. They were all scholarly flawed. They were all academically flawed. And you're the only person that has come with a sound interpretation. So that is really my opinion. And I encourage you guys, I encourage my youth to look at everything that's available out there. I don't think trying to censor information is in any way good for anyone. Look at all these things, these are things that are coming up in today's world, in today's information technology-driven world. And you need to look at these things and understand these things. And you need to know about these things. I'm not saying don't look at his channel, don't go to his channel. Go to his channel by all means. Look at all the videos, why not? But also, remember also, that what he's saying so authoritatively, it has no basis. It has no argumentative basis and no academic basis. So really, you can't just take someone for his or her word. You need the background. You need to ask the question: where are you coming from? What is your framework? What are your arguments for the case that you're making, and all of those things. So do keep those things in mind and look at whatever you want to look at, everything. Take care of yourselves, your family, people living around you, your city, your country. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.